Veterans Chronicles is sponsored by the state of Qatar, representing Qatar's commitment to the U.S.
Welcome to Veterans Chronicles. I'm Greg Columbus. Our guest this week is Andrew Napier. He is a veteran of the Kentucky Army National Guard. He's a veteran of the war in Afghanistan, serving as a combat medic. He's also a recipient of the Purple Heart. And Andrew, thanks very much for being with us. We appreciate it.
Hey, Greg, thank you for having me on. I'm honored to be on this program, especially with such a long list of very honorable veterans. I really am humbled.
Well, we're grateful for the service of everyone, and your service certainly deserves to be recognized, and your story deserves to be told. And so we're thrilled that you're here. So let's start at the beginning of your story. Where were you born and raised?
Perfect. I was born in Alabama, in Fort Rucker. My dad was in the military, so we lived there for a little bit. Moved over to Kentucky. Was raised up there. Spent all my younger years in Kentucky. That's where I joined up out of the Guard.
And you mentioned your dad was in the service. Does your family have a long record of service to the military?
We do, actually. Yeah, it goes back by generations. That was something that really was instilled in me early. That was people wanted to go around and play with Power Rangers and whatever, but I always saw my dad's fatigues, and I thought that was the coolest thing ever. I found his basic training book and up in the attic once, and I was completely hooked. I was like, this is for me.
Tell us a story of how you chose to join the Kentucky Army National Guard.
Yeah. So actually, we had a assembly in my school. You see, I was a little bit of a troubled youth. I really had some issues with at home, outside of home. I had a mouth on me. I got into a lot of problems, a lot of trouble. I ended up actually into a juvenile delinquent home for a couple of months. Some people are out playing sports. I put all that on the pause because I, again, got myself into trouble. That was really, really young. I was looking for a way to really kind of push myself outside of academics. And really the presentation that was given by the recruiter just resonated with me. This was a way for you to go to college, which, I couldn't afford. Also a way to see the world, serve your country. And also it really played into the whole thing, like I said, talked about with the generations being in the service. I wanted to do my part. I actually ended up in the recruiter's office, however, in the Marine Corps. So that was the first thing. And the first, I I kind of heard this idea, devil dogs. That was the coolest thing. I stepped in and, they told me hey, we can maybe send you to college. I don't know. There's, you get nothing that goes along with it, but you're a Marine now. And I was like, I don't know if I'm sold on that, completely. And right next door, there was the National Guard office, and I walked in and that was it. They sold me the moon, and I signed up.
And so did you sign up and pursue being a combat medic, or was that assigned to you?
Actually, the first thing I signed up for was infantryman. So, the first thing that's listed on my paperwork, I still have it. It says 11 Bravo. My mom pleaded with me. She didn't want me to go into the service and actually refused to sign paperwork when I was 17. But she was like, listen, I had already signed and I had gone to MEPS and all that stuff. And she was like, listen, your father was an engineer. He sat down and talked to me too. Was like, listen, you want a skill, you want a trade once you leave the service. And I don't know if carrying on a machine gun is really going to translate well for you once you leave. So my mom's a nurse, and she was like, hey, how about look into this? It's a combat medic. It's somewhere halfway. It's got the cool combat moniker, but you're still serving in the medical corps. So I was sold. I switched, but I actually ended up in Fort Benning, home of the infantry, and I got completely smoked by the drill sergeants there because they kept asking me hey, what are you doing? Why are you here? Why is there a dirty medic? That's what they kept calling me the entire time. So that was a good time.
Talk about what the combat medic training was like. I assume they trained you to be prepared for the type of wounds you'd likely be encountering there. So what did that entail?
Yeah, it was actually a pretty high speed. In retrospect, I look back on that. They initially had the first, of course, you go through basic training, and then you go through the AIT. And initially, they train you up to give you a civilian skill. So for us, they wanted us to be EMTs. So we had to take a national EMT course. So they put all this into the classroom. Whether you worked on PT, all that stuff, marksmanship. Once you got through with that phase, they transitioned you over out into the field for the combat medical part. So we were doing small surgeries. That was surgical airways, doing everything really. And here I was, 18, 19 years old. I look back on that and it was just so much experience.
And so then you volunteered to deploy as soon as your training was done. Why did you decide that?
I was hooked. When I first I got out, and I loved AAT. It was so much fun. I had a really good time, made some great friends. really got into the training. I got into the PT. And when I came back, I was like, I want more than just, 1 week in a month and 2 weeks out of the year. So as soon as I came back, I went right to my commander and said, hey, like, I want to volunteer. I want to go somewhere. Like, I want to deploy because I feel like my skills, they're going to rust and they're going to degrade if I don't use them. So it's like, I'm young, I want to go. So I signed up, and actually, that was towards the end of the year. They don't really give you much of a heads up. On January 2nd, I received, or actually before, it was like December 30th or 29th, I got a letter in the mail and said, hey, you're mobilizing. You've got 5 days to get your stuff and pack your stuff, and you're leaving. So that was it. We shipped to pre-mob, and the next thing I know, I was in Afghanistan.
What were your first impressions of Afghanistan?
It was harrowing. There was a medic, and he was African, and he was talking to me. He said he just came into the unit and kind of a little bit of broken English. He was like, hey, I don't know what to tell you. I just came in because the last guy got injured. Let me try to tell you like some of the stuff that's going on. And that was it. I got 1 day, like one afternoon with the guy, and then he was out. And then we were on mission. The third day I was in country.
So, Andrew, as I've seen in your previous oral histories, there wasn't much of a gradual introduction to life in the combat zone. You were busy right away. I think day 2 was the first time you dealt with someone with mortal wounds.
Yeah, that kind of got kicked in the face there. That was, I still have some video that I took. We went to the aid station, and we went in and actually had brought in a couple of reporters, some overseas reporters, like from a mission that had gone awry. That was day 1. Day 2, they brought in a whole list of people. That was the first time I dealt with my first American KIA. I learned about, the additional training that was going to have to undergo, and that was mortuary affairs. So I was within the compound. So that was just kind of like to pull patients and those that were killed in action off the plane, off the bird, strip them, bag all their effects, and bag them up.
Day 3, while you were there, your unit was ambushed.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Yeah. They told us we had some ride-alongs with a couple of guys that stayed back for a little bit to train. And they said, hey, like they all know, the Taliban knows, like whenever there's a new unit in, they want to kind of set a precedent. So like, we're going to go outside the wire. It was a route control, a route clearance platoon. So we went out looking for mines and bad guys, whatever. So they were like, they're going to know, they're going to ambush us. Just be prepared. So we're buckled in, and I've got all my PPE on, like all the stuff, and I've got everything: goggles and ear pro, the neck guard, crotch guard, the whole 9 yards, shoulder pads. I had everything. The damn turtle. We get in there, and nobody else. The old guys they have none of that on, right? Just like it's just the LBA. They got this light body armor. Some of them don't even wear that inside the truck. They just don't care. They're checked out. We're rolling a couple hours into the mission, and I just hear this noise, and almost sound like popcorn, just and just something tinkers off the side of the truck. We're the last gun truck, and then the explosions come. So then they start dropping mortars. We're right in the middle of an ambush, and it was exciting, to be honest. Like that first time, man, it was thrilling because you first see these things happening, and then it kind of goes into your mind, and hey, like your life's in danger, but at the same time, like, I don't know, it's fun, it's exciting.
Did you have to address many wounds on that first ambush?
No. So that whole thing went without a hitch. We went through it. We gave each other high fives. I had a good time and laughed it off. Whenever we reached the next base.
We were talking about your first harrowing moments in Afghanistan, Andrew, but we haven't talked yet exactly about what the unit was and what your job was. You mentioned in passing that it was about route clearance, but explain what that is and how that work is done.
Yeah. So, I guess in the old videos, you see somebody out, even as a kid, right? You have the toys with the minesweeper guys in the front, and you think, those guys are crazy. That can't be a thing anymore. So yeah, hats off to the guys I served with, just insane, because they would be out in front. We're clearing these routes, these little goat trails of any mines, anything that's kind of stopping or preventing units from traveling across these. And it goes outside of units, also civilians, so unfortunately we would see the aftermath as we went out on missions, on patrols, and civilians would get hit with these mines. It was interesting because for us, we would talk to some of the local populace, and they kept saying they thought that the Americans were planting the bombs into the road. And that was something, the Taliban, of course, trying to manipulate everyone there and tell them these things. But, we went out time and time again and found so many munitions that were just buried beneath the pavement.
How many are in the unit, and where are you in the formation as the unit proceeds?
Yeah, so within our unit, I was in a route clearance platoon, number 3. So we had 30 some odd guys within this platoon, and I served as a medic for all those guys. So that was out for everything from sniffles, colds, aches, wounds, little boo-boos, all the way to everything else that happened on mission.
Andrew, let's pause there real quick. We'll be right back with much more of your story on Veterans Chronicles. If we've learned anything this year, it's the importance of soap and supporting small American businesses that keep our economy going. That's why we're introducing Hero Soap Company, a brand that pays homage to the values our country was founded on. With a U.S. Air Force veteran as an owner, Hero Soap Company understands the dedication and sacrifice each family makes to serve. Handmade in Phoenix, Arizona, each bar of Hero Soap is crafted with ingredients sourced from U.S. companies and is free of chemicals, dyes, fragrances, and parabens. Go to herosoapcompany.com to subscribe for a 20% saving and have soaps delivered every month. Order any number of soaps in your subscription, and Hero Soap Company will send a one-time matching number of soaps to the troops. Plus, a portion of every sale is donated to charities that help veterans and first responders, including Operation Finally Home. Use promo code Dana at checkout and save 10% on all non-subscription orders. Suds up with the Hero Soap Company. Promo code Dana. This is Veterans Chronicles. I'm Greg Corombos. Thank you very much for being with us. We're joined by Andrew Napier. He's a veteran of the Kentucky Army National Guard, served as a combat medic in Afghanistan, served 6 years in the Kentucky Army National Guard. And Andrew, we talked about your second day in theater, your third day in theater. I've also heard about your fourth day in theater, and that's when a Humvee got hit by an IED, and the folks affected by that were flown into where you were, and you saw some particularly gruesome injuries. How did that impact you, and how did you deal with that?
Even to this day, it's the initial encounters, I think, that really resonate. Because at some point you just become to numb a little bit to what you see, right? So it's those first initial encounters, and that was one of them. One of the unfortunate things with the Humvees that I learned about, where the fuel lines would run beneath the seats, that would match the pattern of injury, because these things would the IEDs would go off. They would burn people. They'd burn people alive inside of these Humvees. The gunners would always be ejected out, and they would make it. They would come in, and that time in particular, the gunner was ejected from the vehicle. He kept asking, like when he came in off the Black Hawk, we took him in, and one of the guys was obviously dead. And they kept asking, I was like, hey, what happened? Like, where is everybody? Tell me, how can I help? How can I help? And he just kept repeating the same, 2 or 3 sentences over and over and over again. I just the chaos, and that was from a small group of guys. We saw many more later, much larger numbers later. That guy, I don't know his name. I hope that he's okay. I just reflect on that. I couldn't imagine it.
In July of 2008, another ambush injured members of your platoon, including you, with some shrapnel. Tell us what happened that day.
So we were training another group, the 2-2 infantry, and which is an active unit. We went through and same deal, the same old stuff, old hat, some small arms goes off, followed by a little bit more pizzazz. They were dropping mortars and firing RPGs, same stuff. But they started getting a little bit more aggressive as time went on through the summer. These seemed to be small and uncoordinated attacks, and then they kind of increased in complexity. We dealt with multiple complex ambushes that were done by IEDs. So this one, it kicked off, and it just dragged on forever. They just kept hammering us, but they were accurate. These mortars were not. Before I'd watch them and it'd splash off the side of these mountains, but these were hitting close. The one of the gunners that was in the truck, I don't want to name his name, that we were helping to train, ducked down, was like, hey, rounds are coming in. And, the platoon sergeant that was in the truck with us was telling him, hey, get back up into the gun. Like, what are you doing? Of course they're shooting at us. That's what happens. That's what an ambush is. So I'm watching the whole front of the Taliban move toward us, and I see them. They're not just shadowy figures. At this point, we're, like I said, we're the rear gun truck, and I'm watching my own demise. And then the last thing I called out over the radio was there he is, 50 meters. I was trying to call out a distance. and was trying to give a direction before our communications were severed. I saw this flash of bright orange light, and then I was out. I was out cold. I woke up to screaming in smoke. I felt my leg numb. I thought we hit an IED. I thought the bright orange flash, I thought it was like an illumination round. Guys will see that, and we were so close to where they shot this RPG or fired this RPG at us. I didn't register. My leg was numb. I had a little bit of blood that was forming on my leg. I reached for my tourniquet that was on my chest because, I thought I lost my leg. I thought, we hit the IEDs. I became those guys that I saw all the time that came into our aid station. I look down. There's a couple of pieces that are sticking out of my leg, very small. I rip open the pant leg at the tear in my seams, and it looks like like a paper clip that's like sticking out of my leg. And I start laughing. It's funny because I was like, oh my God, I have my leg. And I look and I'm trying to check the assessment of myself. And then I look over, and one of the counterparts in the back, I had taken shrapnel a pretty good degree into his arm. I reached to get my medic bag, which was right next to me, and it was completely destroyed. I was looking for like an IED. I was looking all over the ground, but an RPG had come right through our vehicle. So it hit us like perpendicular and went inside, and it literally blew up into the seat next to me. I look over to the side, and the shrapnel had just painted the whole side of the inside of the vehicle. It didn't come my way. Went to the other side. It knocked out all of our communications. It took out some of the lines in the truck. It destroyed almost all of my medical equipment. I had some backup stuff for like a mass cal situation, which is what I used to patch the other guy up. We kept taking rounds. We were cut off of communications. We kept pushing through. Luckily, we still had mobility. We ended up getting outside at the ambush zone, and we ended up getting flown out.
What's it like in that moment when you're not only trying to attend to the people that you're responsible for, but you're wounded as well?
That whole veil of invincibility was just dropped, right? So I talked about being young and being there, how exciting war initially was. And it just, it turned, the whole tide turned. And it was scary. It was harrowing because at that point, you realize I'm not invincible, right? Like someone can reach out and touch me. Like those RPGs will strike with effect, and they'll do what they're intended to do, right? We don't have reactive armor. These aren't Abrams tanks. They hit us and we could be toast. I had seen that. With Humvees. Unfortunately, some guys had some devastating injuries with that. But I don't know. You just don't. You think that you're 20, right? And the world is yours. Everything's given to you. You think, and then until it's not. And that was to come with it. I still kept thinking about the enemy that was coming toward us, right? Like we were still in this ambush zone. We can't move through these go trails very quick in these trucks. I just was hoping that we get out. We called out that we were black on ammo in our vehicle because our gunner that had switched out was firing everything off, right? So we had gun trucks that were completely black on ammo. We were calling in for help. We not to get political with the military or anything, but sometimes some of these things have to get cleared by someone that is not on the ground, right? So they send over and they say, hey, give us some munitions. We can call this out. If we've got someone that an FO, someone that could call something out, like a distance and direction, whatever. No, we can't do it. They're civilians. I'm like, okay. So they were like, well, let's get some smoke. We need something. We need to cover, and of course, it's bad sky, so we can't get air coverage. There's all these things happen, right? And then in that moment, you realize you're nothing. You mean absolutely nothing. You're a number. You're a number on a piece of paper to someone that's sitting their ass in the U.S. Behind a desk, and they don't care about you. They don't care. I don't want to say this to have negative things with it, but it's just the reality, right? And that's what everybody needs to be prepared for, right? To someone that wants to sign up and go in.
Andrew, we'll be talking a lot more about this when we come back and the impact that you had after returning from Afghanistan and the work and the mission that you've had since then. We'll be right back with Andrew Napier. He's a veteran of the war in Afghanistan, recipient of the Purple Heart, and also a veteran, of course, of the Kentucky Army National Guard. We'll be right back on Veterans Chronicles. Our guest this week on Veterans Chronicles is Andrew Napier. He's a veteran of the Kentucky Army National Guard, veteran of the war in Afghanistan, where he served as a combat medic. He's now an emergency room doctor, and he's also a recipient of the Purple Heart. Andrew, you mentioned a couple different things in passing. First of all, realizing you're not invincible when you were hit by the shrapnel. I'm sure that's something a lot of other folks over there came to grips with as well. You also mentioned at times that you looked in the beginning like a turtle because of all the body armor that you had on, and other guys were checked out. What did you mean by that? How did they become checked out?
The complacency, exists in everything in war. And, at some point I started doing the same thing. I was checked out. I had a mission. At some point, the mission in my mind was stay alive, right? And just get home, which was like, and that slowly started to I don't want to say evolve, maybe devolve, because I just didn't really care anymore. If that makes any sense, it's kind of counterintuitive. But after witnessing things in combat and in war, I think that sometimes comes a point in your mind where you reach out to try to explain anything that you can, right? So you're grasping for straws. Let me try to analyze this and really conceptualize what's happening. And it goes beyond that, right? So then you cross into a realm into your head. Everything almost ends up as satire. I don't know how else to say that. It's you kind of brush with what is reality in your own head, and I think that a lot of guys go through that. I towards the end, I was the same deal. I had, sometimes the shirts that helped, if in case you caught on fire resistant, all that all went, the crotch guards, neck guards, everything went, ear pro went. I just didn't care anymore. I didn't care.
Do you feel like it impacted your performance as a medic at all?
No, I still outside of myself, I had a mission that I was stuck with. And that was I'll do anything. I'll do anything that I can to make sure that the people that I've been tasked to help protect or to help really to help out, I'll do my damnedest. And but I stuck by that. I stuck with that. We had a lot of losses in the medical side for people that were either injured. There was a couple of guys, medic wise, that had dropped out because for one reason or the other, and it took a lot out of people to go through that.
What about having to treat wounds and being there for those guys? Do you felt that weighed on you and led you more to just get me home in one piece?
The more that I would see, right? I talked about earlier with an RPG that struck my vehicle, and I saw the aftermath. At 10 days after mine, around about, there was an RPG that hit some guys that took out to take a leak. They went out to use the restroom. And they get popped, boom. They get hit, and instantly 2 of them are dead, right? And those things start playing in my mind because I see that when I come back off of mission into the aid station, worst case scenario, the same as an ER doc, right? So then at all times I'm thinking, when we're on a mission, hey man, make sure this is checked out. Don't do this, don't do that. But at some point you can't control chaos, right? So you try to navigate those things, almost like a sheep herder from behind, right? You just kind of hit the stick and watch it go. But it really starts messing with your head. It kind of hit that peak in October 31st of 2008. I lost, you won't say a close friend by any means, but, someone that was in our unit, that same deal. He got out to urinate and just a lucky shot, and it hit him right beneath his Kevlar, So, seeing that, identifying this guy, it was really hard to try to stomach all that.
What was life like for you when you came home? You're out of that environment now, but now you're surrounded by people who really don't understand what you've just been through. So what was that challenge like?
It was tough. And, unfortunately, to get in the country was much quicker than getting out, right? I was back home within 3 to 4 days, and it took us weeks to finally get in the country after traveling, going through all these different bases. And, I was on this last mission, I had jumped out of a vehicle that was moving because I saw someone that had a camera out in their car. I come up and I punched the side of the vehicle, and I put this rifle up and I stick it in this guy's face, and I'm screaming. I look back on that. 3 days later, I'm in traffic, right? I'm behind the wheel of a vehicle inside the United States, and that's all I can think of. If I see somebody that's in passing, they just being out on the road, just everything brought all this back, and it was so quick. I was going to school. I tried to preoccupy my time. I enrolled directly into school at the University of Kentucky, but kind of the same deal. You don't have that rush of adrenaline anymore, and you try to get that any way that you can. And sitting behind a textbook is not where it's at. So you try to look for constructive outlets. And sometimes it's very easy. A lot of my friends did that destructively. Some people ended up getting into a lot of trouble. Okay. And it's not any different out of my unit than others, and that's heart-wrenching, because I feel that those guys, that could be easily solved for a lot of them, not easily, but there could be some things in place. Right.
And so how long did you struggle with that, and what eventually helped?
I won't say that there was a stop really, but you change, right? You become a different individual. And for me, I just felt like that it was a trying moment in my youth, and you kind of get put through the ringer, and you come out a different person. So that I adapted and evolved and changed. That was a necessity, right? That you can't continue to dwell on it. That was the thing that killed me with trying to talk or whatever. With in the VA and with counseling, is just that it brought all these negative things back, and just sitting back and just flapping about it just wasn't changing and doing anything for me except bring more nightmares.
One of the things I know you're passionate about is for soldiers of all branches to make sure that if they came home with an injury, whether it's somewhat limiting or permanently disabling, that their life's not just on hold in perpetuity. There's still value. There's things they can contribute. Talk about how you work through that and how you convey that message to others.
Exactly. That was the big thing that bothered me. There was a narrative at the time of the broken veteran, whatever, and nothing. I pales in comparison, looking at the previous wars, the previous things guys have gone to. That's why it's kind of, I am a little embarrassed to even talk about it, because on a grand scale, it was nothing. I did nothing. Right. But just to be told oh, it's okay. Let it all out, or, it shouldn't have done this to you. I kept hearing these things over and over again, and it killed me. Some of my friends bought into this, this sort of victimhood mentality, never got themselves out of it, drove themselves to drugs, alcohol. And I said, forget this. I wanted to flip that script, and I wanted to make something of myself, and I was like, this is nothing. This is not going to define me. There's a lot of people that are out of my cohort that have done the same thing. Some of my really good friends have gone on to establish businesses, to make a name for themselves. And I truly, honestly believe that we are going to be the greatest generation. I say that as humbly as I can, because I feel like this generation, we need to kick just like this. And there's some great people that are going forward and doing good things.
Do you believe there's a role for the VA to play there, or is this more of a one-on-one, veterans helping each other, family members understanding how to help their loved one who's a veteran? What's the most effective approach as you've observed it over the past decade?
There's a lot of complexities. Everybody's different, and it's very difficult, right, to tailor one thing to give to everyone. What I will say is that there's a lot of VAs that do an excellent job. I met some great clinicians that really helped me with your physical elements. A lot of other things transitioning back, and a lot of veterans say the same thing, but that's not the end. That's not the end, guys. Right. So that's not where it stops. And that's not where you stop putting work in. And just because you came home does not mean that everything is put on hold. And it continues to develop. I think that with families and things and what they can help contribute. Yeah, of course, you could be there to listen and whatever, but also, it's okay to push us, right? It's okay to push us to go beyond our comfort levels, because if not, that's how all organisms are, right? We take the path of least resistance. And, if it's going to be easy, we're going to go for it. Okay. And you have to tell yourself that's not acceptable. It's not. Just because you're a veteran, who cares? Who cares? You've got more in you.
Do you feel like it's getting better? I know the suicide rate for a long time was about 22 a day. I don't know what the official numbers are, but do you get the sense from talking with folks and from your own work that it is getting better, or is there still a lot of work to do here? We're
reaching the end of a phase of a veteran, this sort of monolithic community. At some point, I feel like a lot of people are on the same page. I feel like there's been some diverging. I do think that for a lot of communities, for some people, it's getting better. But statistically, right, I would have to analyze that myself, right? So, I'm trained in science, and I want to see that in front of me, right? So I've read the 22 deaths, but I know there's a lot of confounding errors with that number. Okay, so I don't want to sit back and say things are improving. Of course, subjectively, from what I see, anecdotally, of course, yeah, but that means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. that would definitely not be answered by someone like me. But like I said, I think that personally, anecdotally, from what I see from other friends and what they're accomplishing, I think things are improving.
We're talking with Andrew Napier. And Andrew, one of the things you said earlier about why you joined the Army National Guard was because you wanted to go to school. And I don't want to leave it that you struggled at the University of Kentucky, because the story does not end there.
Yeah.
You became a Tillman Scholar, named after Pat Tillman. Explain what that program is and what you did with that opportunity.
Yeah, so the Pat Tillman Foundation, there was a scholarship, Tillman Military Scholars, that went forward for those that are seeking academic excellence, people that are involved in their communities. I applied for the scholarship towards the end of my undergraduate program. I ended up getting awarded that scholarship. Very grateful for that. Such an excellent community of veterans. When I talk about these high-speed people, I can't think of a better group. So many people, like the famous Johnny Kim, right? So I actually met that guy, the Navy SEAL, the doctor, the photo that circulates all the time. I got a brief conversation. I didn't know who he was, and he was telling me how to get into medical school. And just the caliber of people that I encountered in that program was phenomenal. From there, I just made friends. I wasn't networking. Went out and met people, talked to people, and the next thing I know, right? I meet one guy. He's like, "Hey, I'm in medical school at this place. You should check it out." We hit it off. There's introductions that are made, and then next thing I know, that's I'm getting an acceptance letter from medical school at USF, which for me just blew my mind, because at the time, my undergraduate, were telling me "Hey, your grades are okay, but our school is just there's not a lot of people that are making it out to go to allopathic medical schools. You should reconsider your path." I'm not having it. And I'm so grateful for that community.
And later on down the line, you founded a medical device company, and one of the things you've created is a device that was inspired by your time in the service. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so my company, Bear Creek Medical, I came up with an idea with a video laryngoscope. It's a device that's used to innovate, to put a breathing tube down people's throats, which a lot of people are becoming aware with now with COVID. At the time in the military, we had this device called the Ranger. It was a video laryngoscope. If anything got onto the screen, it would completely blur the image. You couldn't see anything. That makes sense in photography, whatever, right? So if you think you're putting a camera into someone's mouth, the likelihood of getting that soiled is quite high. In combat, in the combat environment, this would happen. I continued to see this into medical school and also into my residency training in emergency medicine. And at the time, just to backtrack, I was making sketches and drawing things out and trying to figure this, what I could do in super simple. Came up with an idea. I can clean the lens. I have a patent that I applied for about 2 years ago that we're in the process of getting it approved now. We brought this company. I reached out to another veteran, another Tillman Scholar, Dave Warden, and we partnered up and we've been tackling the industry. We reached out to a lot of people. We've got some excellent feedback about the device. We're lining up manufacturers right now to help meet demands because the demand's there. Like I said, with COVID, with everything that's going on, I'm passionate about this. I've seen what happens when garbage medical devices fall into the hands of those in the military, and it could be done better. And that's what I hope to deliver.
Well, they'll be very grateful for that, I hope. You are now an emergency room doctor, and so you now see trauma once again. How well did your military service prepare you for the medical career you now have? I'm sure you learned a lot more detail since, of course, you went to medical school and so forth. And when you see trauma now, does it take you back to Afghanistan?
The preparation, we from the second day I was there, I got to scrub in for a surgery and for an amputation in Afghanistan. And, I remember I walked in, the surgeon had held the hand up and waved it at me and said "Hey," and he thought it was the funniest thing ever. And morbid, but from then on, I guess, like I said, I just none of that fazed me. And I had this morbid curiosity about the human body and how everything worked, because they were doing amazing things. That did prepare me for my preclinical training, and then also for emergency medicine. And my ER residency in Miami, Florida. We dealt with some a mass casualty there as well. There was a bridge collapse, and a lot of that kind of brought back moments from the military. But you kind of get in the zone, right? And you kind of you put this game face on, and you help you really get dialed in. the burns, that's something that's, still to this day, like brings back, there's so many senses, right? There's, not only you're seeing, there's this olfactory, or there's the smells, and it's very hard because it's kind of sensory overload. That was some of my worst memories, were soldiers that were in IEDs, and they would get implanted with diesel gasoline, like diesel gas. So like it would be a blister would form on their skin, multiple blisters that were full of diesel. And if you move them or take anything off of them, those blisters pop and diesel pours into the floor, right? And so like we get these traumas where people, of course, there's diesel machines. And yeah, I mean, it's I'll be a liar to say that doesn't, for that moment, kind of put you back again. It's very hard to overcome that. But again, it's a job, right? And you go in as a professional, and you're trained, and you overcome it.
Final question for you, Andrew. It's been 14 years now since you joined the Kentucky Army National Guard. I don't know if that seems like a lifetime ago or yesterday, maybe both in some cases. But between your active duty service, what you're doing now with the medical devices and so forth, what are you most proud of with relation to your military service?
I'm very grateful for the opportunity to serve my country. And in today's time, sometimes that's met with resistance, and it's shameful. And I'm disgusted sometimes with some of the things that are happening and being said. I'm grateful to have that opportunity to be able to serve. I'm proud of what I've done, and proud of the service that other people have put forward. Some people sacrifice some, and like I had alluded to earlier, like some gave everything. They give their lives, right? So fathers, like daughters, sons, they've given their lives in order to protect our ideals, right, of our country, and that's something I'm very proud of.
Andrew, it's been a fascinating discussion. Thank you very much for your time today. And most importantly, thank you very much for your service to our country. We truly appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Andrew Napier is a veteran of the Kentucky Army National Guard. He's a recipient of the Purple Heart. He's served as a combat medic in Afghanistan, and he's now an emergency room physician. I'm Greg Corombos. This is Veterans Chronicles.